The Watergate Scandal. In the 1970s, a scandal unraveled that forever changed how people viewed political power. The theory was that President Richard Nixon's administration was spying on political opponents to ensure victory in elections. What started as a break-in at the Democratic National Committee headquarters at the Watergate complex turned into one of the biggest political scandals in history. It began when 5 men were caught breaking into the DNC office in 1972. At first, it seemed like a random crime, but investigations revealed these men were connected to Nixon's re-election campaign. They weren't just looking for information, they were planting listening devices. What made things worse was the discovery of secret recordings Nixon made in the White House. These tapes exposed his efforts to cover up the crime. This scandal proved the power of investigative journalism, as reporters from the Washington Post tirelessly uncovered the truth. Their work led to Nixon's resignation in 1974, making him the only U.S. president to resign. The Watergate scandal showed that even the highest office in the land could not escape accountability, reinforcing the importance of checks and balances in democracy. MKUltra. Imagine your government secretly experimenting on citizens without their consent. That's exactly what happened with MKUltra, a CIA program designed to explore mind control. For years, this was dismissed as a conspiracy theory, until declassified documents revealed the horrifying truth. Starting in the 1950s, the CIA conducted experiments involving LSD, hypnosis, and sensory deprivation. The goal was to control minds, extract information from enemies, and even create brainwashed agents. The worst part? Many participants didn't even know they were part of the experiments. These included prisoners, mental health patients, and everyday citizens. The program caused untold psychological damage, leading to several lawsuits. It was officially shut down in the 1970s, but its legacy remains a chilling reminder of how governments can abuse power. MKUltra raises profound questions about ethics and the lengths authorities will go for control.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more topics you love.
The Gulf of Tonkin incident. In 1964, the U.S. claimed that North Vietnamese forces attacked its naval ships in the Gulf of Tonkin. This incident was used to justify escalating America's involvement in the Vietnam War. For years, critics suspected the attack was fabricated, and they were right. Declassified documents later revealed that, while one attack did occur, the second, more critical, incident was completely false. It was misrepresented to the public and Congress to gain support for the war. This manipulation led to millions of deaths in a war that many now view as unnecessary. This story highlights the devastating consequences of misinformation and the need for transparency in government actions. It's a reminder that questioning official narratives is not just a right, but a responsibility. COINTELPRO. The FBI is supposed to protect citizens, but during the 1950s and 60s, It secretly spied on and sabotaged civil rights leaders and activists under a program called COINTELPRO. What started as a conspiracy theory was later confirmed by FBI documents leaked in 1971. COINTELPRO targeted figures like Martin Luther King Jr., spreading false rumors to discredit him and even encouraging him to end his own life. They infiltrated groups like the Black Panthers and anti-Vietnam War movements, sowing distrust and chaos from within. This program showed how governments can misuse power to suppress dissent. It's a sobering reminder of how far authorities may go to maintain control, even at the cost of justice and civil liberties. Tuskegee Syphilis Study. For 40 years, the U.S. government ran a medical study that left black men untreated for syphilis, even when a cure became available. This shocking abuse of trust, known as the Tuskegee Study, was conducted from 1932 to 1972. The men were misled into believing they were receiving free health care. In reality, the government wanted to study the effects of untreated syphilis. Hundreds suffered needlessly, and many died. When the truth came out, it fueled distrust in the healthcare system, particularly among black communities. This case underscores the importance of ethics in science and the need to protect vulnerable populations. It's a dark chapter in history that continues to shape conversations about medical trust and accountability. Operation Mockingbird? During the Cold War, the CIA secretly worked with journalists to spread propaganda. Known as Operation Mockingbird, this conspiracy was confirmed through declassified documents and Senate investigations in the 1970s. The CIA recruited prominent journalists and planted stories in major news outlets to promote pro-government narratives. This blurred the line between journalism and state propaganda, undermining public trust in the media. While the program officially ended, it left a lingering question. How much of the news can we truly trust? This revelation shows the power of media as a tool for influence and the dangers of compromising journalistic integrity. It's a lesson in the importance of critical thinking and media literacy. Big Tobacco lied about cancer. For decades, tobacco companies insisted their products were safe, dismissing claims that smoking caused cancer and other health problems. Many believed this was just a conspiracy theory pushed by anti-smoking advocates. But in the 1990s, internal documents surfaced proving that Big Tobacco had been lying all along. These documents, often referred to as the Tobacco Papers, revealed that companies like Philip Morris and R.G. Reynolds knew about the harmful effects of smoking as early as the 1950s. They were aware that nicotine was addictive and that smoking was linked to lung cancer and heart disease. Instead of warning the public, they launched aggressive marketing campaigns targeting young people, including teenagers, to ensure a steady customer base. The companies also manipulated research, funded misleading studies, and even worked to discredit scientists who spoke out against smoking. The revelation led to massive lawsuits, resulting in billions of dollars in settlements and stricter regulations on advertising and packaging. This story is a sobering reminder of the lengths corporations will go to protect profits, even at the expense of public health. It underscores the importance of holding industries accountable and supporting independent scientific research free from corporate influence. The Iran-Contra Affair. The Iran-Contra Affair was one of the most shocking political scandals of the 1980s. It started with a seemingly outrageous claim that the U.S. government secretly sold weapons to Iran, a country it officially considered an enemy, and used the proceeds to fund Nicaraguan rebels known as the Contras. Initially dismissed as a wild conspiracy theory, investigations later prove it true. In the mid-1980s, the Reagan administration faced a dilemma. Congress had prohibited funding for the Contras, who were fighting to overthrow Nicaragua's socialist government. At the same time, Reagan officials sought to improve relations with Iran, hoping it would help secure the release of American hostages in the Middle East. To achieve both goals, they orchestrated a covert operation, selling arms to Iran and funneling the money to the Contras. When the scheme was exposed, it sparked outrage. Congressional hearings revealed that high-ranking officials, including National Security Council staffer Oliver North, played key roles in the operation. While President Reagan claimed ignorance, the scandal tarnished his administration's reputation and raised serious questions about government transparency and accountability. The Iran-Contra Affair highlights how governments can operate in secrecy, often bypassing laws and democratic processes. It's a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked executive power and the importance of investigative journalism in uncovering the truth. The Manhattan Project. The Manhattan Project was a massive secret endeavor by the United States during World War II to develop the atomic bomb. It was so covert that even many government officials had no idea it was happening. What sounded like a conspiracy theory at the time turned out to be one of the most significant scientific achievements and moral dilemmas in history. Starting in 1942, the U.S. mobilized some of the world's brightest scientists, including Albert Einstein and J. Robert Oppenheimer, to work on the project. The goal was to create a weapon that could end the war. Over 3 years, more than 300 people worked in secrecy across multiple locations, including Los Alamos, New Mexico. Despite its scale, the project was kept hidden from the public until the bombs were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki in 1945. The Manhattan Project wasn't just a scientific breakthrough, it was a turning point in warfare and geopolitics. It introduced the world to nuclear weapons, raising ethical questions about their use and the long-term consequences of their development. The secrecy surrounding the project also demonstrated the government's ability to control information on an unprecedented scale. This story reveals the double-edged sword of technological progress. While it ended World War II, it also ushered in the nuclear age, creating a new set of global risks that humanity still grapples with today. The CIA and drug trafficking. The idea that a government agency could be involved in drug trafficking sounds like pure fiction. However, evidence suggests that during the 1980s, the CIA indirectly supported drug traffickers to fund its covert operations, particularly during the Iran-Contra era. Investigative journalist Gary Webb brought this theory to light in the 1990s through his series Dark Alliance. Webb revealed that the CIA turned a blind eye to cocaine trafficking by Nicaraguan Contra groups, who used drug money to fund their fight against Nicaragua's socialist government. This cocaine fueled the crack epidemic that devastated inner-city communities in the U.S. While the CIA denied direct involvement, declassified documents later confirmed that they were aware of the trafficking and chose not to intervene. The agency prioritized its Cold War goals over addressing the social harm caused by the drug trade. This scandal exposed the dark side of geopolitical strategies, where the ends were seen as justifying the means. It also highlighted systemic inequalities, as the communities most affected by the crack epidemic were often marginalized and lacked resources to recover. The CIA's actions remain a controversial chapter in U.S. history, showing how covert operations can have far-reaching and devastating consequences. The Dreyfus Affair. The Dreyfus Affair was a political scandal in 19th-century France that centered around the wrongful conviction of Alfred Dreyfus, a Jewish army officer, for treason. At the time, many dismissed claims of anti-Semitism and corruption as baseless conspiracy theories, but the truth turned out to be much darker. In 1894, Dreyfus was accused of passing military secrets to Germany. Despite flimsy evidence, he was convicted and sentenced to life on Devil's Island, a notorious penal colony. The real reason for his conviction was rooted in deep-seated anti-Semitism within the French military and society. Evidence later surfaced that another officer, Ferdinand Esterhazy, was the true culprit. However, the military actively suppressed this information to save face, further fueling public outrage. The case divided France, with one side supporting Dreyfus and the other defending the military. It wasn't until 1906, after years of legal battles and public pressure led by prominent figures like writer Émile Zola, that Dreyfus was exonerated. The affair highlighted the dangers of scapegoating minorities and the importance of fighting institutional bias. The Dreyfus Affair remains a powerful example of how prejudice can corrupt justice and the role of truth-tellers in exposing systemic wrongdoing. It's a reminder to question authority when evidence points to injustice. Project Sunshine. Project Sunshine sounds like an innocent name, but its reality was far from harmless. This Cold War-era conspiracy involved the U.S. government secretly collecting human tissue samples, including from deceased infants, to study the effects of radioactive fallout. What made it truly sinister was that consent was rarely, if ever, obtained from the families of the deceased. In the 1950s, concerns about nuclear fallout from bomb testing were growing. Scientists wanted to understand how radioactive isotopes like strontium-90 accumulated in human tissue, particularly in bones. To do this, they obtained samples from hospitals and morgues around the world, often without the knowledge of grieving families. In some cases, they took entire body parts from children. The truth came to light in the 1990s, causing public outrage. Families who had lost loved ones were horrified to learn that their remains had been used in secret experiments. This scandal exposed the unethical lengths governments would go to in the name of national security. Project Sunshine is a sobering example of how scientific progress can come at the expense of ethical considerations. It serves as a warning about the need for transparency and respect for human dignity, even in the pursuit of knowledge. NSA Surveillance. The idea that the government could monitor all phone and internet communications once sounded like a paranoid fantasy. However, in 2013, Edward Snowden's revelations confirmed that the National Security Agency, NSA, was conducting widespread surveillance on U.S. citizens and people worldwide. Snowden, a former NSA contractor, leaked classified documents showing that the agency collected metadata from phone calls, emails, and internet activity through programs like PRISM. These programs were justified under the guise of national security, but operated with little oversight. The revelations sparked a global debate about privacy and government overreach. Scandal highlighted how technology can be used to infringe on personal freedoms, while the NSA argued that surveillance was necessary to prevent terrorism. Critics pointed out the lack of transparency and accountability. The case led to reforms, but many argue they didn't go far enough. The NSA surveillance program remains a cautionary tale about the balance between security and privacy. It's a reminder of the importance of questioning how much freedom we are willing to sacrifice for safety, and who gets to make that decision. Operation Paperclip. At the end of World War II, the U.S. secretly recruited over 1,600 Nazi scientists, engineers, and technicians to work on military projects. This operation, known as Paperclip, was kept hidden from the public because of the controversial nature of employing former Nazi Party members. The scientists brought to the U.S. included individuals like Wernher von Braun, a key figure in the development of Nazi rocket technology. Under Operation Paperclip, these scientists contributed to U.S. advancements in space exploration and weapons development, including NASA's Apollo program. While their expertise helped America gain an edge in the Cold War, it raised serious ethical questions. Critics argue that the U.S. ignored the moral implications of working with individuals who had participated in war crimes, prioritizing technological and military advantages over justice. Declassified documents eventually revealed the full extent of the operation, confirming long-held suspicions. Operation Paperclip is a stark reminder of how geopolitical priorities can overshadow moral considerations. It forces us to grapple with difficult questions. Do the ends justify the means? And at what cost should progress be pursued? Bayer and HIV-tainted blood. In the 1980s, pharmaceutical giant Bayer knowingly sold blood products contaminated with HIV to hemophiliacs worldwide. This shocking revelation exposed a dark side of corporate greed and negligence. The company's blood-clotting products, used to treat hemophilia, were made using pooled plasma donations. When HIV began spreading, Bayer continued selling contaminated products in some countries. even after developing a safer alternative. As a result, thousands of haemophiliacs contracted HIV, leading to countless deaths. The scandal came to light through lawsuits and investigations, revealing internal documents showing that the company was aware of the risks but prioritized profits over lives. Bayer's actions led to stricter regulations for blood products, but the damage had already been done. This case highlights the devastating consequences of corporate negligence and the need for rigorous oversight in the pharmaceutical industry. It's a reminder that public health should never be compromised for profit, and that accountability is essential to prevent similar tragedies.